Hello and welcome to Montreal Hacker. We have another guest today. We are talking today with Stefan Lesaru. He's information security expert. And hi, Stefan. Please, I would like can you say who are you actually? Can you say a couple of words about yourself?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Christian. So my name is Stefan Lesaru. I've been working in information security and currently doing cybersecurity. Started way before the industry was segmented, started in IT. Worked for various entities from hardware, software vendors to doing internal consulting for companies and then working for managed security service providers, covered the range of capabilities from data center systems, networking to lately identity access management, and currently doing virtual CISO services and consulting and advisory capabilities for companies.
This happened mainly in Canada, right? Or
Correct.
yeah.
I've worked on both sides of the pond. Worked until '95 in Romania, then I moved to Canada, and on both sides I worked for multinationals for most of my career. And now I'm just basically independent. Have my own company and provide advisory and consulting services for cybersecurity.
So you know Montreal pretty well, I guess, right? As
Yes,
well.
I had quite a few clients and interesting projects in Montreal. Fun memories, fun memories. That's what I can say.
Okay. Everybody's talking about cybersecurity, information security. How is Canada doing? If it would you give Canada a score between 1 and 5 regarding its level of what would I say security?
So I think we're about 3.5, I'd say, and I'll be fairly generous. I'd go to a 4 tops. I think the main challenge is being located next to US. It's presenting itself a challenge in by itself just because of the market. We're 10 times smaller than the US market is in terms of the actual uh, human population. But from a business perspective, a lot of times what does happen is the Canadian businesses tend to lag in terms of decision making, and that's actually causing a lot of friction in an industry where the shelfware it's common. Like you basically buy the software, don't do the adoption, and then stop being on a shelf for a long time. uh, the a lot of contracts here and the buying cycles are anywhere between 6 to 12 months, so very few organizations. That's commercial as well, not only government. uh, Compared to US, for example, I worked on both markets and I was doing a lot of work for the US government as well. There is actually the lag time here for a commercial organization. It's larger than the US public sector. So you have the sales cycles and the adoption of software, even acquisition of software and implementations starting at 6 to 18 months, right? So it's very long, and that's causing an issue in an area where things change rapidly, right? 6 to 12 months, the software you had that's already presenting new features, capabilities, and the landscape of the threat evolves. So it's just short. And we have the challenge with the space, like it's a very large country geographically cover, and the infrastructure isn't the same from east to west and up north. So
Maybe
um,
it's a matter of money too. I mean,
it is. It is.
right?
It's the challenge, like I said, the physical geographical space that we have does present a challenge for a lot of the infrastructure, like just from wireless connectivity to fiber optics these days compared to before, like copper lines. But the connectivity and the actual lure of the US and the US job market does present these challenges, right? Because years ago, and even now, there used to be the famous brain drain, but we're not admitting to anything. For most, I worked, for example, for CA Technologies prior to up to the acquisition by Broadcom. Out of the 12 years almost I worked with them, about 10, 11, I worked in US primarily.
Which province is, I don't know if you're aware of that, but which province would be the best, the best prepared for
I think,
these challenges?
from preparation, it depends a lot, but I'd say Ontario just because of the financials. It's the economic engine. Ontario has a lot of preparedness. Most of the big financial sector and big banks are located in Ontario. So infrastructure and connectivity in terms of transportation and the telecommunication hub, that's there. If you are looking at, for example, the West Coast, this is pretty good in terms of emergency and anything from avalanche to fire management. They have two seasons, fire season and avalanche season. But they're pretty good at anything that comes to when it comes to population and all the disasters. Some of the areas out east, a little bit less developed, if you will, just because of, like, for example, Halifax on the or New Nova Scotia, right? They have a lot of capabilities, the port, the infrastructure, lots of schools, but not too many people decide to establish and live there.
I know that in New Brunswick there is a big cybersecurity center at the University of
Yeah,
Fredericton, I guess.
correct. Yes, and even the company, like I said, CA, for example, at one point they had a partnership with Dalhousie University in Halifax. They are actually doing a lot of cybersecurity research. So essentially, the usual model, right? The universities were funded by a private entity, and they're doing research and development in that area. The reason for that is one, the brain power, so lots of academia, good academic environments, and on the other hand, is the cost of investment. So it's a lot cheaper to invest, for example, in some of the other areas than Ontario when it comes to getting the brain.
We see that currently IT companies are starting to cut their workforce. In general, I think we're talking about programmers, we're talking about the business people as well. How about the cybersecurity? Are they gonna be unemployed soon? All these experts?
Uh, I mean, the main challenge I've seen, and that's pretty much across the board, but North America, it's more prone to it, is the efficiency. Everyone looks to save. So I used to work for Unisys, for example, in mid 90s, like from early 90s to late 90s. And I worked on both sides of the pond here and in Europe. They looked at the time they were looking at how to minimize the cost, and essentially they shrunk all their footprint in the real estate. They sold all the business, all the buildings they owned, all the campuses. They re-leased, re-rented the entire capability. So nothing's changed from an employee perspective. But at the time, for example, a lot of the employees were actually moved from full time to contract. That saved the company a lot of money and basically got them over the hump. So they went from really small and almost bankrupt to really good and ruling the market in the military, for example, for IT capabilities. Same these days with the advent of like offsourcing and outsourcing on and off, and it goes the pendulum swung both ways. So it was a lot of outsourcing, then back in house, then back to outsourcing. Now with that AI, a lot of organizations seem to think that they can eliminate the actual developers, business people, and so on. I mean, it will be a reduction of the workforce. The market is quite bizarre. The price of actually loaning money, lending money was actually quite high. The bank rates started going down, which does alleviate some of that pain. But again, companies continuously look to reduce costs. So part of the unemployment or getting out the job, it is a reality. But people that will be able to essentially adjust, retool themselves, have a broader range of knowledge and expertise, will be in a fairly good spot in terms of recovery. That's not to say anyone is safe. There will be workforce reductions everywhere. Businesses change, and again, you are competing with powers in the Southeast Asia, like China, India, you name it. It's just a numbers game, if you ask me personally. Like, you have 1.4 billion population in both of these countries, pretty much. We are at 40 million now. So Canada, it's fairly problematic to retain talent. Cost of living here is really high. So it's just a challenge as to companies need to pay, but they don't want to pay. And real estate here, it's about the same as New York, but salaries in Toronto, for example, aren't even close to what the New York salary is. So it's just the economics of it.
Do you think that the so-called AI will actually replace people? Because especially in the information security?
So it will replace certain positions for sure. So if you're looking just I've dealt and I'm dealing with a lot of companies that incorporated machine learning initially. Now it's AI. But for example, for decision making capabilities, a lot of companies are looking to, instead of having, let's say, in a security operations center, 20 analysts, they may keep 10 people, and the rest of the 10 jobs will go to an AI specialized engine that's been trained and essentially can do a lot of the selection and parse huge amounts of data, which the humans have a harder time processing. But then making the operations a bit more efficient and respond a bit more, respond better when incidents happen or things will occur. Again, the tendency at this point is to leave humans take the decision. The actual let's switch this, shut down the servers or isolate these things. But again, from an analytics perspective, AI will take jobs that are fairly repetitive and mundane. We're seeing that with chatbots, we've seen it before. Go to any company, big company now, they have a chatbot that responds to you in terms of technicalities. When the engine behind it can't really do much, they'll pass you to a human. So currently that's the tendency. It will probably certain areas like robotics in automotives, right? They replaced a lot of jobs, but still other jobs were created. So it's just going to be a matter of kind of shifting the workforce. But back to the comment, if you can adjust and shift, fine. If you can't, it's going to be a problem.
On one hand, they cut jobs. On the other hand, they complaining that there isn't enough I mean, there isn't enough specialists, and especially in the information security. So what's I mean, it's a kind of contradiction. What's going on?
I agree, and it's a paradox actually, because a lot of the companies are used to, and that I think started with the outsourcing. So a lot of companies were looking, instead of, let's say, paying someone like myself a lot of money in Canada, it's like, okay, we'll hire 2 people and they'll do the job. And then a lot of organizations came to the realization that not having the actual boots on the ground, quote unquote, not having the individuals connected to the companies they're servicing or doing business with, it started causing problems. So at the same time, though, a lot of people, especially with the pandemic, and we've seen that in other industries, people found ways to survive, right? So I might have not been, IT might have not been my first choice, for example. Okay, I found a different job and then I'm not going back to IT. People that are passionate will stay in the industry. The actual pay isn't necessarily great in certain pay scales. Yes, it's good, but if you're taking a median job, you're looking at a fairly low amount of money to live here. So it begs the question, yes, I'm good at something, but can I survive? So a lot of individuals will probably decide to essentially live their life. And with the burnout in the industry, that caused additional issues, right? So everyone demands more with less. There's actually statistics, and I think you had that on the Montreal Hacker. Like about out of any company out there, there's no budgets, and everyone complains about budgets, but they have 10 workforce people or 10 people, but 9 do the work, and 1 actually is not even there. And everyone says do more with less. It's a problem. Like you're basically looking, realistically speaking, lots of companies doing their job, doing their business with about 80% of what they have. So essentially everyone kind of looks at that buffer at 20%. I've dealt with professional services, same thing. Like basically, I was basically providing capabilities from implementation to delivery and move to production. And that's for the software vendors and MSSPs. If you're looking at it from that angle, a lot of organizations will challenge your numbers. It's like, no, I can do it cheaper. That's fine. But same with everything else, like it's an investment. If you don't take that seriously and you think you're going to do more with less, that's going to be problematic in the long run. It may work for the first couple of times. You get a lot of young people, very enthusiastic and whatnot, but give it a year or 2, you burn them out, they'll look for another position elsewhere. So building teams is the problem.
I saw that some statistics regarding CISOs, CISOs salaries, which are very high. And you know that I found that the difference is spectacular between the management, like let's say CIOs, CISO, and all these people, and you know the let's say the regular guy who's doing his job in a company, you know, as a cybersecurity expert or something. I mean, it's a very big difference. Why so?
Well, to put it bluntly, in my opinion, it's just greed. A lot of the times, so think about a couple of things. So from a chief information security officer, right, which used to be a director of IT about 30, 40 years ago, the difference wasn't that big at the time. The cybersecurity field started getting more segmented. People take more responsibility, true. But the unsung heroes, if you will, all your team behind you. So you can be the chief information security officer, chief information officer, chief technology officer, whatever. If your team is not good, you won't survive in the job. Like basically, you can't do what the team does. The challenge is a lot of times, a couple of things. A lot of positions at the C level or the higher level, their contracts. So basically, there are people that have 2-3 year contract and they can renew. That's not an issue, but their vision and lifespan, if you will, isn't as vested in the company as someone that's actually doing the security operations center, networking, or whatever. And they're really talented people. And I've been through kind of all these positions, if you will, throughout my career. The actual appreciation of what's happening behind the scenes, if you will, decreased over time. So it went from like, yes, you are really good. IT was on its own business. The interaction with the business was kind of rocky, but then eventually it merged that way. But the appreciation it did exist, the appreciation. The challenges over time with outsourcing and everything else and cost cutting, that appreciation for what's being done in the background dropped. And basically, I'll come in as a CISO, and I had that role for Canada, for example, for my last employer. It was basically different than a regular full-time CISO because of the way the organization is. But what I get into is like the pay from a pay perspective. People think, oh well, no, that guy I can do that cheaper elsewhere. It's like, well, that's a problem because that individual, for example, the proverbial institutional knowledge, that individual has been in the role for 10 years or 5 years, and they can respond to anything in 5 minutes. I'll bring someone else. I'll bring 10 people. They won't communicate to each other, and they will not know what to do and what happens. And that's presenting itself a challenge. And that's why we're seeing breaches. We're seeing problems everywhere. But that's because of the fact there's a pay gap. There is discontent in the ranks, if you will, and not a lot of motivation, to be honest with you. Like basically everyone, like I'm not sure, and I'm pretty sure everyone in the industry has been in all hands when things happen, from breaches to data centers being out of commission. It's just a really interesting opportunity to watch the landscape. Like everyone yells at everyone, everyone thinks they can do, and you have people that have to do the work, being stuck in the meeting, having to explain to someone that has, no offense to anyone in the industry, but a lot of people I dealt with like have very to no knowledge in the actual doing of things, but they tell people that have to do those things how to do their jobs, which is micromanaging and not trusting the team that you're running, so leading.
How skilled are these workers, IT information security workers in Canada?
A lot of in Canada, the skill level, it's really high. I mean, myself, I came here based on the point system and the need for the actual engineering role. So I'm an engineer by trade. But the workforce, it's really skilled. The challenge is that what happens is the way the enterprises are run and the fact that everyone looks at doing more with less and investing in other things, not the human capital, the team building in Canada, I found it's really hard to balance. And a lot of organizations start building their teams and taking care of actually growing a really good team and the capability. And basically you can do a lot more with a lot less, because a lot of people will be really vested to learn. You have the proverbial, well, no, do as I say or else, or my way or the highway. And that's becoming very demoralizing for the team, and essentially it's not the outcome isn't good at all. But again, skill set, it's really good, fantastic in terms of capabilities. But again, a lot of us end up working in US if we're really skilled. So it's just the money.
How do you see the future of information security, cybersecurity?
I think there are a couple of initiatives across Canada. There's an organization called Cybersecurity Network, for example, and no advertisement for them. Just happens I'm part of that, but it's starting pretty small, and their goal is to actually connect individuals across Canada. So initiatives like this that are kind of grassroots do appeal to individuals that are motivated to work in this field. I think from a future perspective, we need to wake up to the reality that, yes, we are a G7 country, but at the same time, we don't have the same capability as the Americans have. We don't have the same funding or willingness to invest, actually. So if we start getting better at talking to each other, breaking the silos and communicating and being able to actually bridge gaps, like we've done, for example, in our case, right? We met, we're like, okay, let's discuss about these topics. If we are willing to do that, I think the future is really bright for us. If we keep the way we've been keep doing business the way we've been doing it for the past, I've been here almost 30 years. So if we do it that way, the future may look quite bleak. But
It's going to be the highway, I guess.
right. So we'll take the sunny part of it versus just the bad part of it. So I think, look, without putting my rosy glasses on, I think there's a lot of investment and realization that we need to look into the cyber side of things. Like, and again, cybersecurity now, it's very diverse and very vast. But with that came the disadvantage of being very segmented. And that segmentation, it's actually not conducive to business or communication, and everyone seems to be very territorial. So we need to change that as an industry and collaborate more and understand that really IT and cybersecurity is just not about the technical aspects, it's how you make the business run. And cybersecurity forever been perceived as the sandpaper to the business versus the enabler to the business.
Top 3 cyber attacks.
Business email compromise, the back. Basically, that's the spear phishing. You target high net worth individuals in an organization, or really people, even people with money, like personal entities. The ransomware, basically, because of the cloud these days, primarily like things left unchecked or not protected on the various cloud providers, because that shared responsibility model flies by everyone's heads. They don't read the fine print and they think someone's actually going to secure stuff for them. And the other part is social engineering is becoming more prevalent with the voice phishing, the SMS phishing, you name it, you have it. But pretty much it's a lot of capability in terms of what's done. But again, back probably business email compromise, it's actually the most damaging because that's how a lot of the infections get in at the high level. Someone will click on stuff and it happens to be one of the C levels. Well, you can't go yell at the C level to tell them that they should have done a better job. At the same time, it's just basically the way the business is, and we're a lot more connected. So that's going to amplify, not decrease anytime soon.
How exposed is the cloud? You said something about the cloud. How exposed is the cloud?
So the cloud out of the box is not exposed. Let's be clear. Like I've worked a lot with AWS, Azure, Google. It's not exposed. I did for one of the Canadian banks. We had a private cloud. Essentially, when cloud wasn't a thing, we offered everything as a service in the company inside to the businesses. The cloud is secure, or the actual capability. The challenge is just that do more with less. You open up things, you don't close up the holes you opened in testing or whatever throughout the duration of the implementations. The most famous I can think of is the Microsoft about half a year or so, when they left unchecked an API communication from a non-production to production environment. And really, that's Microsoft, right? It's a big organization. I understood I've done this, and I should not admit this on a live chat, but at the same time, what happens is if you do things for a certain business or technical reason, you have to always remember to close things back. It's like leaving your house door wide open, but you put the TV in full sight. So not these days because TVs aren't worth more, but a pile of cash, for example, right? And you expect no one will come and take any cash out. It's like, well, I didn't like it. Even honest people will be tempted at one point or another. Depends. So that's the challenge, right? It's the cloud isn't exposed, but the share responsibility model, me being aware as the business owner or the cloud owner, that from a business perspective as an organization, I'm supposed to watch that and close the loopholes. Basically, I'll blame it on the cloud provider because I feel like I have no responsibility that I opened things up 2 years ago and I never closed them, but it's somehow Amazon's or Azure's or whomever's fault that they didn't look after to clear up my mess, if you will.
What would you say to some young people who would like to get into this business?
First off, you have to be passionate about this industry, same as anything else, but this industry in particular, because it changes very quickly. You have to be willing to always learn and adjust, be like technology, like to tinker with things. There are lots of people that are not schooled necessarily, like formally trained, let's say engineering or other jobs, but they're really good at what they do, and that's a pity for the industry. So don't give up if you are in a position where you don't have, for example, formal training as a engineer or whatever is being asked of these days. If you are passionate, be persistent, connect with people that you're actually connected at either a personal level, or you basically have same or similar goals, and basically find someone that ideally you can find someone that will mentor you to kind of pursue your goals and provide a proverbial cover if you are in an organization, and basically make sure you basically pursue your goals and don't give up. Like if you want to be a SOC analyst, fine, do so, but always look, and someone that enters the industry has to realize that you have to always learn things, but at the same time, don't be in your comfort zone. As soon as you set into your comfort zone, you will be prone to that AI displacement, if you will, because your job will become one point or another fairly repetitive. And if you want to grow, you'd have to kind of look at avenues to pursue your intellects and intellectual development.
Stefan, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Okay, bye.